Hey, and welcome back. What we're going to do now is create something totally different outside of websites and forms and creating for the web. What we're going to do now is just create something fun and totally different that we haven't done before, but we're going to be using exclusively CSS3. We'll have a little bit of HTML, but very little, and all the rest will be CSS3 to create this. This isn't just a screensaver or anything like that. We're actually going to create an orbiting animation. We're going to have the sun. You can see it's pulsing in the background. You can see it's the solar flare, I guess you can call it. You can see the stars in the universe are fading in and out slowly. The Earth is orbiting around the sun, obviously not in a perfect circle, if you can spot that. To be, I guess, a little bit more accurate. We're not perfectly accurate here, but it's not a perfect circle around the sun. And the Earth itself is rotating. And then the moon is spinning in the opposite direction around the Earth. So there's a lot going on here. And there's only about 3 or 4 HTML tags. And the rest is CSS3 using animations, transforms, rotate, different gradients, colors, background images, so on and so forth. And we're going to go ahead and start that up right now. So in your code editor, go ahead and create a new file called orbit.html. And you will note that there is an images folder here with a couple images, Earth and stars. Those are images that we're going to be using in this project. And they came in the full download of the course files at the beginning of the section. Otherwise, you can download it as an extra in the resources section of this lecture right now. And create that orbit.html, title it orbit animation, add your normalized and custom styles. Just for practice, we won't really be needing them that much. And you can also add the IE conditional comment. Again, this is optional because this isn't really a website. This is just fun little animation. First thing I want you to do is give the body the ID of the universe or of universe. And within the body, we're going to create a div with the ID of stars. And there's going to be no content. This is purely for visual purposes. This is not to have a semantic website or anything like that. This is simply an animation that we're creating with CSS3. Just a good practice. Another div outside of that one with the ID of sun. We'll add another div. And we'll give this one the ID of Earth orbit. And then another div actually within Earth's orbit, and actually an image, the source of images, and we're going to grab that earth.png. Well, I'll just give it an alt tag just for the principle of the thing, Earth, and then as a sibling to that image, give another div with the ID of moon orbit, and in here we're going to add a div with the ID of moon. This is all of the HTML you need to do. You don't even need to come back to this page at all. This is everything. And you won't see anything in your browser. There's going to be nothing here. There you go. We've just got an image of an Earth, and all the markup is just sitting there in the background with no content, with nothing to see yet. So now what you want to do is jump into your style.css and jump down to the bottom of your style sheet and just add a comment here, and we'll just say orbit animation. And we're going to start off by styling, just styling the very basics. So we're going to start with the HTML and the body. What we want to do is give the HTML and the body the height of 100% and the width of 100%, because we are going to be adding a color and a background image to the body, and we need it to be the full height and full width because the universe is never ending. We don't want a fixed width and height on it. So now we're going to jump down here, select the universe, and we're going to give it a background of black. But we're also going to do a radial gradient so we can have a subtle, just kind of gradient in the background there. So we'll also need to select background and then WebKit radial gradient. And in this course, or sorry, in this lecture, we're going to be using the browser prefixes just so we could be a bit more consistent across browsers, especially if you are developing in something like Opera or Firefox. WebKit radial gradient, we're going to do 555 to 000, which is black. So just kind of a gray to a black. We're going to copy that, paste it a few more times here, and then just change the browser prefix. So Moz is the next one. The radial gradient lets you use the O prefix, which is for Opera. For the older versions of Opera, the newer versions of Opera uses WebKit. So this will cover Opera's latest versions, and this will cover Opera's previous versions. And then the last one is just radial gradient, the default CSS3 value. So why don't we just check to see what that looks like? So here we go. We have just a very subtle and clean background gradient right there. And it will fall back to black if nobody has, if you don't have the ability to see the radial gradient. However, if you're using a browser that can't see a gradient, you're probably not going to be able to see any of what we're about to do because they're pretty advanced, kind of forward-thinking CSS3 animations and stuff. Okay. So we're going to scroll down below this, and we're going to select the stars. And what we want to do is simply add a background image, and that will be the stars.png, and it's going to repeat from the top left and repeat infinitely X and Y, so we'll just leave it like so. And so if we save that and just see what we've got so far, you won't see anything, and that's because there is no content within that div, so it doesn't have a height. It's just collapsed to nothing. So that means we need to add a height of 100% and a width of 100%. Save it, and now let's see. So now we have our stars sitting nicely in the background. Now, if you're curious, I created these stars in Photoshop. I just opened up a 300 by 300 image, as you can see here. Actually, 616 by 616. And I just, on a black background, I could show you here. On a black background, just use the brush tool to just dot white, just white dots along, just kind of throughout the canvas here. Then I removed the black layer, kept the stars layer, saved it as a PNG, and then here it is. And now it's just repeating in the background. Okay, now what we'll do is we will select and style the sun. Now let's say the sun, we're going to give it a height of 200 pixels and a width of 200 pixels. And let's give it a background, just a default background of orange, but we want to have more fun with it. We want it to have a gradient, just to look a bit more 3D, I guess. Background, and I'm just going to copy the styles from up here and just change the colors so I don't have to type it all out. So we got our WebKit radial gradient, and we're going to start with the color F5C313, and that is kind of like an orange and not black. We're going to use EC7E08, and that will give us a gradient that kind of looks like that preview. So now I'm just going to copy these values, paste them in each of the parentheses here. And now we should have a sun that kind of has a little bit cool of a look to it. And you can't see it. And that is because the image, I believe the background image of the stars here is covering the sun. So that div is in front of the sun div. So we need to put that div that is sitting behind it, which is the sun, to pull it out in front. And the way you do that is you use something called z-index, and you need to have a position before you can use z-index. So the stars, I want to give the position of relative. And then I'll set the Z index, or Z index, for those of you who want to pronounce it that way, to any number really. So let's just say 2. It's really just up to you. And the reason why is because now what I want to do, so this means that this div is set on the Z index of 2. So it's on, let's just say, layer 2. And now the sun, I want to position this one, well, I'm going to say absolute because I'm going to move it to the center of the screen eventually, and set the Z index to 4. I mean, it could be 40, it could be 3, as long as it is in front of 2. I just like using even numbers sometimes. So now we should see that sun. And we don't. And that is probably because it is just hiding off the screen. So because we're positioned absolute, why don't we just say top 0 and left 0 to see if we could just bring it somewhere in the top left corner. And there it is. So it just must have been hiding somehow above or beside the screen, somewhere where we couldn't see it. But there is the sun. Now the sun right now is a square. We need to make it a circle. And the way that you do that is through border radius. And so we're going to say WebKit border radius. And we're going to set that at 100%. We could say something like 200 pixels. That is the exact height and width. And that will give us a perfect circle. Or we could just say 100%. And that will just, no matter what size we change the height and the width of the sun, it will always be a perfect circle. And we'll say Moz border radius 100%. And then border radius 100%. Just to cover our bases. And now our sun should be a perfect circle. There it is. Now I want to put it in the middle of the screen. So there's a way to do that. So we want to position it in the exact center of the screen from top and left. So you would think that you'd just say 50% and 50%. That should center it right in the middle of the screen, right? Well, let's see what happens. It kind of looks off, like it's not dead center. And that's because it's not. The reason why is because when you're positioning something using top and left or right or bottom, you're always going relative to the top left corner of the element. And so because the top left, because this technically is a square, it's just we're rounding the corners, the top left will be right there where my cursor is. And so it's positioning top left right there. So that's the center of the screen where my cursor is. So we need to account for that. That means we need to find the center of the sun and then position it in the center of the universe. Sounds pretty cool, hey? So what you do there is you find out the width and the height of the sun or the element, find out what half is, and then use margin to bring it back to center. So here's how you do that. So this is a cool trick. We'll say margin top. And so we need to bring it up half of the height. So that is 100 pixels. So we need to say negative 100 pixels. And then margin left, we need to go negative 100 pixels. So then now that is taking 100 pixels away from the width and bringing it over and up. So now, watch this. We now have the sun in the center of the universe. That is cool. Okay, let's get back to styling. So now what we're going to do is we're going to give the sun a background or a box shadow, but kind of make it look like a glow. So you do that with WebKit box shadow, and then we're going to say 0 horizontal, 0 vertical, 50 pixels of blur, and then we'll say FC or F5C91A. It's just kind of a brighter orange color. I'm going to copy this, paste it a couple more times. Actually, yes, 2 more times. This is going to be Moz box shadow, and this will just be box shadow. So now we should have a glow around the sun. There it is, looking a bit more realistic here in its own little 3D kind of cartoon way. And now what we want to do is move on and style the Earth orbit. Now, there isn't going to be any visual styles to the Earth's orbit, but we need to be able to shape what the orbit is, because currently Earth orbit is just a square element with 0 pixels height and width. So we need to change that. Earth orbit. So we're going to say, we're just going to give it a border solid 1 pixel red so we can see it for now. And we're going to give it a height of, let's just start with 600 pixels and a width of 600 pixels. This will make it a perfect square. And we cannot see it, again, because of Z index. So we're going to need to do that with the Earth orbit as well, and say position. We're going to absolute position it because we will be moving it to the center of the screen as well. Z index, let's go with 4. And that will bring it above the stars, in front of the stars.